have Melody Messmer with Centura and her foundation, Foundation 1023. They're supporting Colorado's ride. We're excited to have them along this year. We've worked together in the past, and she just does an amazing job with medical support. But what we really want to talk about in a minute here is your foundation that you founded in 2016 to help with the mental, I don't know what the word is, just challenges of a first responder, and really making sure that those folks are taken care of from a mental health aspect. And I'm anxious to hear about how that came to be. But just for a second, let's introduce you and tell us about yourself a little bit and how you got involved with supporting bike rides.
Absolutely. So I'm Melody Messmer, and excuse me, lived in Colorado almost my entire life, right up until October of 2022 when we made a little move. I've worked for Centura for about 17 years, and it was while working at Centura as an EMS coordinator that I got connected with Ride the Rockies. I think my first year was their 25th anniversary. I think we ended in Salida that year. And providing the medical support for that ride, which I just grew to love, and eventually took over all of the planning aspects of the medical for that ride. And have loved the camaraderie and the spirit and that goes along with the rides, and being able to share the beauty of Colorado out in that natural element of being on our roads and seeing the scenery. And open air is just, it's cool, whether it's on a bicycle or a motorcycle or you're in a convertible. Feeling the open air is really neat, and different air inversions and smells and temperatures and everything, I think, is really invigorating. And so being able to share that in different ways is pretty fun.
Yeah, well, what I love about when we work together is you actually make the medical thing kind of fun. Like, you want to chat with the folks, you got some sunscreen, you've got some lip balm, you've got water. It's not about, I'll just fix you. I want to talk to you and learn who you are as a cyclist, and if we can help you, great. If we can't, let's just have a good time. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably one of our favorite things about the ride is, not only do we have our big motorhome that we take on these rides, well, depending on the size of the ride, we scale that, but we always have our tent that's set up with ice and muscle rub and all different kinds of things like that people can just take care of themselves and hang out and chit chat. And boy, we've made some lifelong friendships and relationships through meeting cyclists and sitting and talking and finding out about what drives them and why they do what they do. And it makes our job super easy, and it makes it really worthwhile to have that buy-in and that love for the riders, seeing them do what they want to do with that personal endurance. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you've been doing this a long time, and you're a paramedic, correct?
Yep.
So you obviously administer some of the medical needs and then manage it as well. You put the team together and you work with the ambulance driver or whatever to really coordinate with the ride, correct?
Yep. We can do just about anything from ice and knees to full cardiac care at the first aid stations that we set up and we man. We take everything with us that we may need and have direct contact with a physician if we need to talk with somebody. And they're even really good about taking care of, if people forget their medications or have that kind of thing, that they need a prescription called in or updated or something. They make sure that those riders have what they need so that they can enjoy their week safely.
That's great. So how long have you been a paramedic?
I've been a paramedic for 24 years.
Wow. Okay. I didn't think you were that old. That's awesome.
I started when I was 6.
Right. So you've been a paramedic, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit and move into talking about your foundation and maybe unlock the real reason why you wanted to do that. And is there a personal story there that really touched you to want to start this foundation in 2016?
Sure, absolutely. 2016 was kind of the turning on the light switch, because 2015 was dark. and hard. Colorado experienced a really high number of first responder fatalities in 2015. It was about one a month.
Really?
Through 2015.
And
It
what
started
causes?
with a Denver Health paramedic. Her name was Deb. She was wonderful, an incredible mentor that just was really struggling personally and took her own life. And then that was followed with an air medical crash or air medical incident down in Austin, Texas. And Kristen McLean, who was a Colorado native, her folks own and operate the boys camp outside of Woodland Park. She used to work for Centura. She flew with Flight for Life, and her husband, who also flew with Flight for Life, had moved down to the Austin area because she wanted to do more with her air medical career. And Starflight down in Austin has a very large, encompassing air medical program. And so she'd gone to work with them and was on a hoist operation and fell from the basket and died. And that was incredibly difficult. I was very close with her husband. We'd known each other a very long time. And the folks that did her funeral, one of those that gave her eulogy was Pat Mahaney. And Pat Mahaney was a pilot for Flight for Life Colorado. 9 weeks after her funeral, Pat died in the Flight for Life crash in Summit County.
Oh, I remember that.
And that was the crash that we also had Dave Rupture that was critically injured. He was burned over about 90% of his body and was in the hospital for over a year. And their third partner, who was a paramedic, he also had some injuries, but it ended up healing and doing quite well. And then we're dealing with that issue, and a couple weeks later we just had a couple more deaths, and then a couple more, and it just really compounded. And there were a lot of us that were just, for lack of a better word, just broken. A lot of these folks that passed away in 2015 were big mentors in the Colorado EMS and fire systems, and it was hard. And we sat down. I was sitting having some beverages with Kristen's husband, and we were talking about the fact that we were doing a really stellar job going out on the moment's notice, the click of a bell, to go out and take care of total strangers in their moment of need, but we were doing nothing to take care of ourselves. And that was just compounding. And so we came up with the idea, the vision, to start providing confidential, super confidential, culturally competent mental health care to first responders and their families. So we operate in all of Colorado and all of Texas, and we've had asks from about 14, 15 other states. I had one out of Alabama this morning. So if we have somebody ask from an outside state, it just might take me a couple of days to get an appropriate counselor for them, but we take care of them.
So is this a proactive thing where you are in front of first responders on hey, we're here all the time? Is it easy to access? Is it well known in the community that you're here to help them?
I think it's pretty well known. We always have to do more advertising because there's always turnover. There's always things that happen in different agencies. And, there's so many agencies of different size, whether it's search and rescue or ski patrol or police, fire, EMS, because we'll take care of anybody that's classified as a first responder. So we try and keep our social media presence really active and follow additional folks if we see new pages pop up for agencies, entities, that kind of thing, to always make sure to follow them so that they're getting our information as well. And then we attend conferences and health fairs, things like that, for different agencies, just to get our information out. One of the things that's super unique about our process is that it's incredibly confidential. One of the biggest barriers with first responders obtaining mental health care is the stigma that's around it. And that if they utilize workers' comp for care, their employer knows that they're asking. If they use their EAP, somebody knows they're asking because they're tracking the EAP dollars. If they're using insurance, a diagnosis has to be attached to why they're seeking care to utilize their insurance. And police officers in particular are very concerned about having a diagnosis anywhere on their health chart because it might eliminate them from the job that they have, or eliminate them from promotion, or eliminate them from changing to another department. So having that availability to just have truly confidential care in their moment of need is important.
So is that because, for instance, a police officer, it could be anybody, if something happens on their watch, they can then, if it's known publicly that they've sought mental health counseling, that reflects poorly potentially on a decision that's made in the heat of the moment? Is that why it's so hard to?
I think so. I think because there is still such a stigma attached to it, and because there are entities out there that may like to pounce on something like that, right, and really make that the sticking point of, oh, well, they saw a counselor for this, or, oh, they did that, or, oh, should they have been at work? When it could be something that is completely unrelated. And that's the thing that I think is really difficult, because you may have somebody who needs to see a counselor because they've had troubles with a teenager, or they've had a death in the family, they've lost a parent or a child or whatever, and so they seek care, and then all of a sudden they're being judged because they're getting mental health care. Well, that's what we would want them to do. That's, they go out on their job and they break their ankle, we give them time for their ankle to heal and grow and be okay. But if we hurt our brain or hurt our heart a little bit, we don't give them the same opportunity.
Interesting. Well, and so is your service free to folks that are qualified to seek it?
Sure. So we typically pay for 4 visits up front. If there's big circumstances, like an air medical crash, sudden death in the family, that kind of thing, we can take care of more. Because we're a nonprofit, we can kind of decide how that needs to happen. If it's for just generalized care and mental wellness upkeep, we'll pay for 4 visits. And then we ask the client to start paying a little bit of a copay, because we also want to normalize mental wellness care as in part of their financial planning and part of their day-to-day. So, we'll have a lot of these folks that'll be like, I can't afford it. And we might say, well, you have 3 CrossFit gym memberships. Right. Maybe you could go to 2 and do a Brain Fit membership and be even better. And so encouraging them to plan that into their financial planning to take care of their brain, not just their bodies.
That makes sense. I mean, you can't unsee certain things, right? And first responders, I hear a story sometimes and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I would not want to have seen that. And you guys do. And so it totally makes sense to then have an outlet to at least acknowledge that. I did work with a police officer in a bike shop, actually, a former police officer. And he stopped being a police officer because he found himself becoming way too cynical in the world and not a good human in his mind. And so he said, I just can't do this anymore. And I'm sure that's a big part of first responders too. Their career might be cut short because of that. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's several things that, I guess, facets that go along with that process. Statistically, outside of the death of a parent, the average human will see 1 critical incident in their lifetime.
Wow.
And first responders are going on every one of those. So they're going out and seeing all of those things anytime that they're at work, in addition to whatever that critical incident statistically might be in their own world.
Right.
And so longevity can be rough. I mean, it can be hard, and people do get pretty dark senses of humor, and they do become pretty cynical and jaded and also environmentally guarded. You'll notice police officers that really interact differently with their environment because of exposures that they've had. They won't sit with their back to a door. They're always planning a second way out, things like that.
Sure. How many people have you served over the last few years? you think?
So since we started, we have provided care to, it's about 3,000 people. I haven't done stats for this quarter yet, but it's about 3,000 individuals to the tune of about 10,000 hours of mental health care.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And kudos to the folks that are providing that care. I mean, you're organizing it, but you've got both. So you've got to have your patient awareness, but then you've got to find the people that actually provide the care, and they're giving their time, I presume, or they get paid less than the normal or something like that. That's got to be a big lift too, to find those providers.
It is, and finding culturally competent providers, because we don't want to just send somebody to any counselor if they're not prepared for the amount of dark that might come out of a first responder and some of the things that they see and they talk about. We need to make sure that the counselors are appropriate for them. And so all of our counselors are screened, make sure that they're trauma informed. Most of them have secondary modalities that they can do. There's modalities like EMDR therapy, brain spotting, somatic release. So we always try and find counselors that have some secondary modalities in addition to talk therapy. And so it can be a little bit hard to find them, but overall we've been really lucky.
That's great. What is the name? Tell me about the name.
So Foundation 1023 was Kristen McLean's badge number. And she was the air medical provider that had passed down in Austin. And then in the old police 10 codes, 1023 also means you've safely arrived.
Okay. Because I was thinking like 1020 is, I think, location, if I remember right.
Maybe.
Something like that. But I kind of wondered if it was some kind of a code, but it's also that's pretty significant. That's cool. That makes a lot of sense though. So how many people are on your team?
So I have about 12 volunteers that work with us on a really regular basis that help keep all of our fundraising events and interactive events going. We try and do things that not only are good for fundraising, but are also good for awareness and sharing our mission. And like we just had a golf tournament down at Raccoon Creek, and that's always good to get people outside and playing and a little bit competitive, but also in a way that they can talk and share and spread awareness. And then in August, we have a field day coming up. The Moose Lodge in North Glen is hosting a field day where they're going to have a volleyball tournament. They're going to have a cornhole tournament, horseshoes, and a poker tournament. So just kind of a fun field day that they're doing as a fundraiser for us. So we always try and do things that are a little bit interactive as well as mission driven.
Great. So how can folks help that might be watching this? Is there obviously you have a website and maybe a way to donate and maybe time too? I don't know.
Absolutely. So foundation1023.org. And on that website, you can do everything from just donate, which we love. A lot of our donations are just organic single donor donations, which are amazing. And we love it, whether it's $5 or $2,500 or $10,000. Every bit goes back to providers because we all volunteer our time. And we also have our events that are listed on there. We're always seeking volunteers. And we love people that have special talents that want to do different things, whether it be from maintaining a website to writing a newsletter or interacting with other volunteers. There's always room for people in our organization to participate and give back to their communities. And then also on our webpage, on the front page, there's a request assistance button, and that's where people can directly ask for services. And we'll take care of them and get them matched up, recognizing that both Colorado and Texas have some very, very remote areas. We also have some providers that do nothing but provide virtual care for those really remote areas that we don't have a lot of providers available in.
Great. Well, I'll just say publicly, extremely thankful for your support of our ride, both with Centura and with Foundation 1023. And we're excited to, as you know, I think we are donating money from our profits to organizations, and definitely excited to be able to do that for your foundation, because it's interesting having started to get more into the event side of the world and talking to folks like yourself, I rode in the police car with Captain Trentini last week from Durango to Silverton, and You kind of sometimes forget about the human side of those people that are out there every day doing this. And it's fun just to talk to them and talk about their kids and talk about your kids and talk about life for them. And they're just like they're just got a different job. And I think sometimes we forget that.
Absolutely. And it's because of that that we also take care of their families. Because that impact can be really difficult on the families in when they're gone for days or get called into work all the time or might miss a family event because of something that's happening at work. It adds a lot of stress. So we want to make sure that we provide that family care as well. And I love this partnership. You and Zach have been amazing to work with and have such good energy, and am glad to partner in whatever way that we do. I love providing the medical stuff, and being out with others and doing that it's good for my soul. And
good. Well, win-win, it sounds like to me. So
absolutely.
Keep it going. And thanks so much for sharing your foundation about what it's, all for. I don't think most people probably knew about it that are watching this. So I'm sure you'll hopefully get some traction with some new people in the system, so to speak, to help out. And
sure.
We appreciate that. And thanks for your time.
Absolutely. It's good talking to you.